I never thought, even when Diamond was a thing, right, where it was like controlling the entire industry, that shit made no fucking sense to me, right? It was one of the things that I never understood. I was like, why in the fuck is there one goddamn company, right, that does everybody's shit? I get it in the sense of, well, the retailers can log into their little portal here. It's a one-stop shop. They can, I get all that, right? Because everybody's a part of that. But in the same respects, it's like, well, at that point, you're beholden to whatever it is, however they do their shit, right? And maybe that doesn't make sense for your company at all. So for like the Ripaverse, none of that shit made sense to go through them or anything. Look, if you go through them, Diamond, Penguin Random House, or Lunar to get your shit distributed, whatever, that shit didn't make any fucking sense. I didn't feel like I needed to be beholden to a retailer because retailers aren't my primary customers, right? And it's not like I do incentive variants, so I don't really have anything. There's no bargaining chip there. You can just buy whatever cover you want straight from us. You want to talk about predatory practices? Let's talk about the industry that you guys support in terms of how they pimp these goddamn retailers. But updating the economic model to make sense and make it unique, isn't that like a beautiful kind of thing? Even crowdfunding and what that introduced like to the game that has allowed people to do shit that they couldn't even dare accomplish and be competitive in a market that they're actually being actively kept on. Like, what other things have you, Ethan, like just naming shit off that in terms of how you do it versus how the mainstream does comics? What have you been able to make unique to yourself or to your company that seems to make far more sense than whatever the fucking mainstream is doing?
We've eliminated every single middleman. It's now me and the customer. There's no publisher. There's no editorial staff that I have to appease, get permission from to do what I want to do. I'm a creative person. I don't need to ask some middle manager if it's okay if I make frog comics. I don't want to do that. I want to make frog comics. And then we've eliminated the distributor. That's my job now, and people that I hire. And we've eliminated the retailer, which is the ultimate middleman. I don't have to convince him anymore. He's not the customer. He's not going to read my books. I don't have to try to get his attention by buying a whole lot of ad space and an outdated catalog. Now I go on the internet and make a fool of myself and try to convince people to plunk down a little bit of money to make it possible for me to make Cyberfrog. Simple as that. And I get to make my comic book. A lot of things have changed with this. We've changed the model of making comic books entirely. We're not doing monthly comics anymore. That's the bad thing. It'd be great to be able to do monthly comics, but again, distribution is an advantage that they have. Shipping out cheap pamphlets. We got to do bigger comics, thicker comic books, and do them. Without
paper quality is a bit, stock is better, everything.
Much better all around. I mean, it's just, forget it. I've got all the time in the world to make like a comic book that's going to stand the test of time. I can draw beautiful women. Nobody can tell me to cover them up like they used to at DC. And I send it right to you. I send it right to my customers. It's a million times better. It's a million times better for creative people. It's a million times better for the fans because we're beholden to each other. Yeah. If you didn't like this, if you got it, you didn't like it, or you didn't like waiting for it, you don't have to back the next one. It's on you. But if you continue to be supportive, if you enjoyed this, obviously we're going to be able to grow this thing and make it bigger and bigger. I think that's the thing. Now you're talking about Marvel and DC ever changing course, and I got to send you a black pill on that. I really, it's not going to happen. And when I worked in comics, the entire reason that DC existed, Marvel existed, their excuse was to say, well, we're very cheap R&D. We're research and development for Hollywood video games, cartoons. So that's why, even though we lose money compared to the amount of staff that it requires, the moving parts to make these pamphlets, still one of our comic books becomes a major motion picture and it becomes worthwhile. Our existence is justified. Our entire one movie makes as much as like 3 years worth of Marvel or DC's existence if it's successful. Okay, that's one movie is that profitable. That's no longer the case anymore. First, we've been swallowed up by these big parent corporations, and they hire writers who write better stuff than we do. Like what do they need? Brian Michael Bendis to write a Batman comic or a Superman movie? They've got people out there who do a better job at writing movies. And when we interfere as the comic book industry, it causes all kinds of problems. Ask Jeff Johns. how that went when the biggest writer in comics, tried to interfere with Hollywood movies. That was his job. It didn't go well.
Yeah.
Nothing good came of that. So they no longer need us for that. And rip it, all we exist for now, the mainstream comic book companies that belong to these parent companies, the reason why these rotten virtue signaling social justice rags exist now is to say we're now an inexpensive way of signaling the virtue, the social virtue of our parent corporation. Much cheaper than hiring more and more people, more job titles like creative director of diversity and these fake jobs that exist now. And they're real. I mean, these jobs, people are actually director of diversity now.
Yeah.
Chief officer of inclusion. These are real jobs at Warner Brothers.
Yeah.
What does that mean? What does it mean? What the fuck? So you go ahead and you put out these comic books. That's what the comic book companies are doing. Look, our comics are gay. Okay. And now we get woke points from BlackRock. And that's the entire existence of the mainstream comic book companies, Marvel and DC, are hanging by that thread.
Yeah.
Let us exist because we signal your politics. We signal your virtue as a parent corporation. We lose money. We're too much trouble, but we have that. How could that change?
Yeah. I mean, they've done themselves in, right? I mean, even if they could, I mean, they've invited a bunch of locusts that would destroy them even the minute they try to adjust. So I think it'll be burned to the ground. Look, to me, I think what is far more likely for people that are banking on, hey, these guys are changing course, is that the one thing that you could maybe hope for, if there is to be hope, is that they start doing so poorly that the parent companies start to say, this shit is not worth it. Economically, it is not worth it. And they start selling off assets. And the person that ends up getting it is a person that actually gives a shit about it, an actual comic book person. You know what I mean? That's the best that you could hope for. But it's not going to happen in the current structure that exists right now. It's just not going to happen.
No, they have to actually, option those characters off to us. Yeah, comic book companies need to be nimble. We need to be self-reliant. We're not going to make $350 million, okay? Because that's too much and too little at the same time. Yeah. It's too much for us to handle. It's too little to be owned by a big parent corporation. We need to be small, agile little companies that produce pamphlets quickly, much quicker than I'm doing now, much quicker than you're doing now, that appease our audience and make a lot of money and are able to stay independent. Yeah. Independence is the key word. Independent comics excitement, ICE. We're coming for you. That's our. We're coming for you, ICE.
No, but it has to be that way. And it makes most sense, man. Like, the game has changed. I think a lot of these models have been archaic, outdated. They don't seem to make sense. They haven't even caught up with the internet. Hell, there's so many different, especially entertainment industries, speak about this all the time, that haven't even caught up to just what the internet and its capabilities. But you do have people that are going to be protective of the old status quo because I guess they benefit the most from it. However, it seems to be hindering them as well. And that's the beautiful thing about the independent stuff is that, you get to kind of come up with some sort of model that makes sense for you. And it may not look exactly like mine, but that's the cool thing. You can tailor make it to be exactly that. Whereas with how it's been in comics for so long, everybody did it the same fucking way, largely, for the most part, especially with the economics, especially with the distribution of it all. It was the same shit. And that's just it's not as necessary anymore. Wherever you're viewing the content, I appreciate you. If you enjoyed it, you may be interested in my comic book company, Ripaverse Comics. Our first book and campaign, ISOM #1, brought in $3.7 million with tens of thousands of satisfied customers. Visit Ripaverse.com to check out our store and stay up to date with the latest campaigns from one of the hottest new comic book companies. Also, my first big step towards a parallel economy was the development of my personal website, ericdjuly.com. This entirely replaced my Patreon. Now, if you enjoy this content, please consider becoming a member over at the website. We have an ever-expanding list of perks for various membership tiers, a forum, and a phone app. Some of these perks will even benefit you if you're fans of the Ripaverse. Anyway, I appreciate you so much for being a supporter and or customer. I even got a little love for my haters.